Greetings, brothers and sisters. I already made my video for today. It's got Chrissy Teigan searching for her lost hamster. And Andrew Cuomo's giving another, I didn't do it farewell speech. And this happened, so I'm adding this to the beginning of the video because this is kind of huge news in the world of JoJo Magoo. Also over here, my bad, Fauci apologizes for his latest gaffe. This is the New York Post, but here's the big headline. Biden says U.S. will stick to August 31st deadline to leave Afghanistan after Taliban threat. Mr. Taliban isn't going to tally JoJo's banana, and Magoo wants to go home. Joe Biden just gave to the Taliban's August 31st deadline. If President Trump were there, the deadline would have been the day every single American is home, not a second before, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows wrote on Twitter. So I was watching the news this morning, and all the major outlets were covering this, and they were all basically saying over and over again that the deadline had to be extended and that JoJo needed to step up. Even CNN and MSNBC. But then I saw this, which was hilarious.
There at the White House, Courtney Kube at the...
Courtney Kube? It's Courtney Kube.
There at the White House, Courtney Kube at the Pentagon. She was just in that briefing that we were broadcasting there. And Ken Delaney in cover.
It says CIA director holds secret meeting with Mr. Taliban leader.
Let me start with you. The Pentagon there, not appearing to want to get ahead of the president's decision on whether to extend that withdrawal from Afghanistan. You're reporting that decision will likely come today. Did anything that we just heard there point toward a decision one way or the other?
Not really. The Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby kept saying that they were still working towards the August 31st deadline. But that being said, it's still up to the president.
It's Courtney Kube.
This is a policy decision that the White House has to make. The president has to make whether he wants to extend the military mission there in Afghanistan. And that's not a decision that would be made lightly. So let's look at the options here. If they decide to extend to allow for more time for Americans and Afghans and other third country nationals to actually get out of the country, the Taliban are completely surrounding that airport in Kabul right now. In fact, they're even controlling several of the gates to get into the civilian side of the airport.
So the Taliban's got JoJo's banana in a vice. Mr. Taliban.
So if the U.S. were to extend against the wishes of the Taliban, there's a very real possibility that the Taliban would attack. They would consider it an offensive against any kind of agreements that have been made. And there's the possibility that the U.S. troops would come under fire and all of those civilians who are there, who would be left there at the airport. So the decision is, does the U.S. want to take that on? Does the U.S. want to? Well,
the decision's no, because it's already been made. Because this is just an old video. Biden sticks to August 31st Taliban withdrawal deadline. I haven't seen the video yet of him saying this, but he's going to come out and say it in a bit. I'll get that before I post this. But here's CNN.
24 hours, and you were very clear with my colleague Kate Baldwin yesterday. There should not be any artificial deadlines when it comes to the evacuations of Americans and our Afghan partners. Based on that and what you've learned in the last 24 hours or so, do you agree with the president's decision now to stick with that deadline?
I respectfully submit that we have to stay until we get certainly our American citizens out and as many of our Afghan allies out as possible. The one thing that probably everybody knows.
This is a Democrat. I mean, no one wants to be a part of this crap fest. Like JoJo screwed all these Democrats.
Since 1988. So, yes, the California recall on September 14th matters a lot, not just in the Golden State, but nationwide. And that's your reality check.
That's our reality check. I just thought I'd throw that in. There's some other dude that was doing sort of truther news. Ben, what is Ben something? Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. I don't know what happened to that guy. But they stole it, right? They stole his reality check bit.
John, thanks so much for that. And thank you all so much for joining us. Erica Hill picks up our coverage right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, America Hill in New York, in for Ana Cabrera. The window is closing in Afghanistan.
It's closing. The window of doom is closing.
Biden has decided he will not extend that August 31st deadline, meaning America's massive rescue mission will end in just 1 week. This morning, Biden spoke with G7 leaders, and soon he'll update Americans on the operation in Afghanistan. With the final days of the airlift now in sight, evacuations are surging. 21,000 people were flown out of Kabul on U.S. and coalition aircraft yesterday. That is another single-day high.
They're setting records left and right.
Hundreds of Americans were among the evacuees. The administration, though, still won't specify just how many Americans do remain in country. CNN's Caitlin,
because they don't know.
Collins is live at the White House. So, Caitlin, first of all, this huge decision by the president, what more do we know about it? And
we know he's been denuded by Mr. Taliban.
And what do we expect to hear from him on this when he speaks later today?
Well, Erica, he could very well explain his thinking behind this decision.
Well, I hope he does. He's got some explaining to do. And what incredible reporting by Caitlin Collins here. The president might explain his thinking behind this epic decision. He's going to talk about it, and he might even get into his internal process and what he was thinking. I don't know. I can't say that for sure. This is the lead into this major story. The president's about to have a press conference. He might explain his thinking. He might not. He might not. Yes, you know absolutely nothing. Like, why are you even on TV?
Because it does not come as a surprise to those in the West Wing who knew that a lot of the president's top advisors had been advocating against extending that deadline past August 31st, aware of the security concerns on the ground. That has been something big that they have been.
So I've been waiting a couple hours for JoJo Magoo to stand up and take his whooping. He's getting pummeled right now in the media and on the internet for backing down to Mr. Taliban. And meanwhile, real other news is coming in. Andrew Cuomo stripped of his Emmy after leaving office. And the New York Post has Rosie Perez here for some reason. And she's got something to say about it here.
Much love. Brooklyn loves ya. Andrew Cuomo! Mwah!
What an honor and pleasant surprise during these hard times.
He got his Emmy yanked. I'm going to go on to cover his speech in just a bit. Here's another one of his crappy speeches where he denies any involvement, but now he's got his Emmy yanked. And not to be outdone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, screw your freedom remarks.
Screw your freedom.
Leads to a sponsorship loss. So Arnold taking a financial beating for wanting to screw your freedoms. So they said he was going to speak a couple hours ago. I have a tab open from the Washington Post that was going to have Joe Biden's speech live on YouTube, but JoJo Magoo isn't showing up. He's with Mr. Taliban, but there's no indication. He was supposed to, these guys were saying like 2 hours ago that he was about to speak, and he hasn't. And so it's dour over at CNN.
To get to the airport, we shall see.
We'll have more with the lead with Jake Tapper right now.
Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper, and we start with breaking news in our world lead. Any minute, we expect President Biden to speak at the White House. He will talk.
Any minute. It's been 3 hours.
Talk about his decision to stick with the August 31st deadline to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan. That means exactly 1 week from today, there could be no U.S. forces in Afghanistan for the first time in 20 years. And moments ago, CNN learned that the first U.S. troops have already started leaving the country. But there are caveats to this pledge. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
Okay, so they're trying to formulate a strategy because they're just getting pummeled, right? There's all these people, Democrats included, many of them, that can't believe this is happening. But, this was, mishandled since the beginning of the war 20 years ago. and it's 20 years of bad decision making and all the rest of it. So this woman with the sunflower behind her is going to address JoJo's stolid Jake Tappa's.
What are you expecting? What will you be watching for President Biden to say when he speaks in a few minutes?
Well, Jake, they've been pushing it off for hours today, so I'm curious what kind of, behind-the-scenes drama there's been leading up to this. As you know, President Biden met this morning with the G7 leaders and discussed whether and how to stick to this August 31st withdrawal date. So I'll be looking to see how firmly he articulates that as the absolute date beyond it.
So they realize that this is an unpopular decision, and they're going to try to come up with some answers. But JoJo isn't a good delivery person, right? He's limited because of his mental deterioration. And so this is where it's, having some guy who's a complete tool and a puppet is costing them, and him. And they're trying to make this turd smell good, and it's never gonna. And so eventually he's going to have to come out and give a speech. And it seems like they don't want to have any sort of military problems with the Taliban, Mr. Taliban, because they want to get out, right? And if American soldiers die, then they're going to have to go back in, American people, whatever it is, and then they have to go back in, and that's this is a shitstorm. Like, it's getting worse and worse by the minute. And, Taliban's making demands on them, and, unless the Taliban allows Americans to leave after the American military leave. But it's just this, there's no way to make this thing smell good.
Also, what are they moving the goalposts at all in terms of what the mission here is? As you pointed out, originally President Biden said they would want to be able to evacuate any American and visa holder who wanted to be evacuated. Is that still the language? And do we have a better grasp on how many remain to be evacuated? How many overall? Also, that's a big question I have. How many Afghans overall?
And JoJo doesn't have any of the answers, and so he's still not coming here. They go on and on. This is live, some kind of commercial, but JoJo hasn't made an appearance yet.
Screw your freedom.
All right, so I have a bunch of other stuff to get to. I've already, edited. It's ready to go now. So I'm going to put this video up, and whenever JoJo comes out of hiding, I'll get around to his press conference tomorrow and, some of the reactions to it. But this is a bad day for Magoos. Greetings, brothers and sisters. Andrew Cuomo has one last hurrah here. He's given his exit speech. And I got a bunch of other funny things to get to. Let's start here with Nips Cuomo.
There will be another time to talk about the truth and ethics of the recent situation involving me.
You mean after you quit for a while? You're quitting, bro. If there was no truth to it, then why are you quitting? If you're not guilty, then why would you quit?
But let me say now that when government politicizes allegations and the headlines condemn without facts, you undermine the justice system. And
that's why you don't quit and you actually go through the process. You don't, look at him. You're still talking about this. Like people think you're a good guy, and your poor daughters, remember from his other speech? Plus, you're getting off lucky. There's 9,000 dead senior citizens that got COVID and died of COVID, according to the official story. I mean, this is the official story, that he put people with COVID in with senior citizens, the most vulnerable group, and 9,000 more senior citizens died after that. So this is what, you're lucky you're not in jail, right?
And that doesn't serve women, and it doesn't serve men or society. Of course, everyone has a right to come forward, and we applaud their bravery and courage in doing so. But allegations must still be scrutinized and verified, whether made...
Then don't quit. Like, if they weren't verified, you're literally walking out of your job because of these allegations. and you're saying they should be verified, that you've somehow been crucified in the press and that's made you have to resign, then you shouldn't resign. You should fight it. You're a quitter. I think those nipple barbells have made you weak.
By a woman or a man, that is our basic justice system. I understand that there are moments of intense political pressure and media frenzy that cause a rush to judgment. But that is not right. It's not fair or sustainable.
Again, you don't quit then, right? Like, how many times do I have to say it? If you're innocent, you don't quit.
Facts still matter. A firecracker can start a stampede, but at one point everyone looks around and says, why are we running?
Why are we quitting? Maybe you should say, why am I quitting?
Truth is ultimately always revealed. The Attorney General's report was designed to be a political firecracker on an explosive topic, and it worked. There was a
because you quit.
Political and media stampede. But the truth will out in time. Of that, I am confident.
Yeah, what about these lawsuits coming your way from people who lost relatives? I mean, I'm sure someone's going to sue you.
Now, there are moments in life that test our character, that ask us, are we the person we believe we are? Or are we the person we try
that quits
to be at our best? You know me. I am a fighter.
Except when you're quitting.
And my instinct is to fight this because it is unfair and unjust in my mind.
But you quit instead.
But you also know that I love New York. And I serve you. That is the oath that I took. And in this moment, I believe the right thing
is to quit.
Is that my service come first. Prolonging this situation could only cause governmental paralysis. And that is just not an option for you and not an option for the state, especially now.
Exactly. He's doing it for you. He's quitting. He's doing it for New York. He's quitting for New York. New York is better off with him quitting.
There is real work to be done, and it will require government to function at the highest level. What we do now is more important than what we have done as a society in generations.
You know, when somebody's giving a speech like this, he's quitting in shame, like he had to resign, right? And so there's no way to make this good. Like either he shouldn't have quit, or he's guilty, or they told him if you don't quit, we're going to go after you for something more severe. And so whatever it is, like he might be less guilty of being a snoozler groper at JoJo Magoo than he is of a murderer, manslaughterer, of putting sick people in with the most vulnerable population. But either way, he went from hero to quitter in about a year, right? It was about a year ago at this time. He was in his heyday with him and his brother, right? His brother was in the basement, and they were like the toast of the town, and now they're both disgraced losers, and he's a quitter. Chrissy Teigan cuts hole in the wall of house to rescue missing pet hamster. I think of a... Did you check your husband? Because I think there might be another place where your hamster could have ended up. I've been waiting all day to do that. I saw this morning. I had to go to the eye doctor and get an exam. And so I had to wait till my eyes cleared up so I could make this video. I've been waiting all day to make a John Legend hamster joke. Our hamster's been missing for 3 days. I heard a faint scratching in the wall. Maybe it's hiding from John Legend.
I'm gonna stay and see if I can hear it. Yeah, there is a hole in the wall. There's wires going up.
Yeah.
That's how it got down on the wire.
The wires. Don't worry about those wires. Proceed with this hamster rescue. Forget about those wires. What could they possibly do to you?
Wires. Wait, she's scratching the wire? No, she's using it like a rope to climb.
It's good running, remember?
Sneaky.
She's not crazy. Right there. She's looking for a hamster in her wall with electrical wires, and she's not crazy. Look, she sees him.
Right on the other side.
It's just like your whole cancel culture thing has gone south. You're about to rescue your hamster. Listen, I'm listening. I hear hamster in there. Where is it? Is it in there? Is it? Where is that guy? Where's that hamster? Oh, cut that hole. Yeah, it's up top. Shh. Shh. Get it. No idea the plan here. Let's cut some hole. Let's just rip down the hole.
Don't take a hammer. Don't take a hammer. Yeah, but you can't do it.
All the drywall.
You have to do it because this is a beam.
Where is it? Go ahead, just start hitting the thing with a hammer.
I can get this off. I can screw drive in here. There's look. Wait. See, there's
He can screw drive in there. He's gonna screw drive for the hamster.
screws here. There's got to be a way. There's screws, right? I can see it.
He can see it right there.
So there's screws in here. If we can get this piece moving, we can unscrew this and pop it out. Don't push that in. We can't. It's not. It's attached. Can we open this? There might be screws in here. I might be able to take this. Only open
He's getting pissy about it.
from that side. Really? And it pushes. Phillips this. Well, because
Some point.
we should. You can't get out now. It's been
I chiseled a hole and look.
scratching it, Mom. It's okay, Peanut Butter. Mom knows.
Yeah, he's right
It's
there.
okay.
He's right there. He's right there.
It's okay. You guys want to give him butter? We're coming. Yeah, it's definitely peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
Oh.
Look at peanut butter's right there.
Here, give him some. Oh, give it seeds. Oh my god. Oh my god. You can get her. Wait, do you want to try to get some more? It actually might help.
Take a little bit more.
I can't get.
Just start force feeding the thing. Just force feed him.
I got a little hand. That's why I do massage.
I can't. I dropped them all in there.
And we know one thing about rodents. When you start force feeding rodent food into your wall, through your drive wall into the space between beams, that's not going to attract more rodents. You're not going to have a rodent problem now.
You dropped the gerbil.
Look at a small hat.
Here, let me.
Do you want to try to pry it open a little bit more? Yeah. I think I can pull her whiskers. Do you think? Well, if he does a
Whiskers? I thought his name was Peanut Butter.
little bit more, she's not going to go anywhere. She wants to come out. The best is if she comes, she'll fall down. You got it? Yeah.
She's laughing her ass off. Come back into your cage. Leave the freedom of the wall and jump into this little plastic ball. OMG.
Are you serious? If she left during all this?
She just wanted to know she had an exit.
Here she is. Here she is. Here she is.
Hi, beautiful.
Here she is.
She's coming, isn't she?
Go free. Don't go. They're tricking you. To get out of there. You don't want to go back. Run.
Yep. Oh.
Peanut butter. Hi.
Oh, they trapped you. Peanut Butter. You blew it.
Hi.
Oh, Peanut Butter. You were free. Look at that big mouth. She's going to eat it. Look at her. She wants that. Or other things. She's got bad designs for this hamster. Well, that was scary. So I'm in the editing process, and two things I left out here. Number one, how did that hamster get into the wall? Like, she's not a good pet owner. And number two, I talk about in the voiceover portion of the video low-functioning human behavior, and Chrissy Teigan and this hamster debacle is a good illustration of that. Jessica Chastain reveals heavy makeup for Tammy Faye movie did permanent damage to my skin. She has permanent skin damage from wearing too much makeup and plastic surgery. And the plastic surgery did help as well. Here's this ad from JoJo Magoo.
I remember this picture. God love my boys. They're a year and day apart.
Which is Hunter. Hunter, this is before his crack addiction.
And this was a trip to San Francisco. I was a single dad.
He was a single dad.
And I couldn't afford childcare. There's no way. And I was a U.S. Senator.
He was a U.S. Senator and he couldn't afford childcare? Come on, bro.
I just couldn't afford it. And had I not had my family, I don't know how I would have done it. Would have had to take them everywhere or not go myself. People should have access to affordable childcare. And my Build Back Better agenda.
And so other people should have to pay for that. Is that what you're saying?
Is going to lower the cost for childcare. It's all about our kids.
Is it, though? Is it about the kids, JoJo?
So we should care for them.
There's JoJo Magoo. He cares. He's just a caring dude. This son died from brain cancer. This son's a crackhead, and JoJo couldn't afford childcare. I served in Afghanistan as a Marine, U.S. Marine twice. Here's the truth in 2 sentences. Number one, for 20 years, politicians, elites, and D.C. leaders lied to us about Afghanistan. Number two, what happened last week was inevitable, and anyone saying differently is still lying to you. One of my friends on Instagram sent me this because this guy's saying what I've been saying, even though I was never in Afghanistan. But I knew they lied to us because most of us know that now, right? Most of us who are in the truth community understand that we are lied to about all of these illegal wars that happened, immoral wars. And the place is a mess. And when you leave a country like this, this is what happens. Especially when you've failed to, I mean, in this case, it was about regime change. And when you fail to get rid of the Taliban, the hey, Mr. Taliban, Tally JoJo's banana, Magoo's banana, when you fail to get rid of them, then this is what's going to happen. They're going to take back over, and they're going to be pissed at all the people that helped the invading force, the collaborators. And now you're going to have, a nightmare situation for those folks. What is hyperinflation? And one of my friends sent me this as well. Inflation is when money loses its value, so you need more to pay for the same thing. Hyperinflation is inflation that is very high and out of control. Prices increase so fast by erroneous amounts. The cost of a loaf of bread in Germany due to hyperinflation in 1918, 1 mark. In 1922, 163 marks. September 1923, 1,500,000 marks. November 1923, 200 billion marks, right? The world's most famous case of hyperinflation was the Great War after World War I, and that was in Germany. And this is what happened, that goes through the various historical aspects of this. So I'll come back to this, but I've talked about this before. We're on the verge of hyperinflation. And I also want to get to this. I saw this meme, and this woman's the New World Order, and this wave is us if we get our shit together, and that's not true at all. And so I want to cover these two things. enough about hamsters. We got to get to hyperinflation and this, idea that this is everybody else and this is the new world order if people get their shit together. So the first piece to this is, if you have been paying attention, especially this last year, but probably your whole life, but particularly now, it's hard to make a case for humanity, saving humanity. I mean, just being on the internet and seeing the way people treat each other, the trolling, people wanting other people to be canceled because of their beliefs, and the division, the anger and the hatred and the growing animosity between demographics and all these things that I talk about. There's very little evidence that humanity is worth saving. The good part of humanity is, it's less. I mean, I could say from the time that I was a young kid till now, human beings have gotten worse, much worse. And I don't know how anybody could deny that, right? And so what you have is, in the truth community, there's this idea that it's just the elite, that the elite have influenced people in the wrong direction, the so-called elite people, the wealthy people, the ultra-wealthy people. And if you got rid of them, everyone would get along and things would be great. And that's never been the case. In human history, there's been wars and manipulations and lies and just heartbreak and horrible atrocities throughout human history. There's been blissful periods. There's been blissful tribal, situations in Aboriginal cultures and things where people have lived in harmony. But that's, very rare, isolated. It's not something that, covered a whole country. It's little pockets of Shangri-La, right? And especially in the, the past 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga. Before that, in the Vedic age, there was more harmony and there was, people lived longer, and was a completely different human race back before the Kali Yuga. But even then there was wars. Even then there was, a lot of the things we have now, just not as intense, and people were just better. People were less selfish and less egocentric and had a deeper connection to God, but it still wasn't perfect. Humanity was, struggling even then. But now human beings are a disaster in two ways. In multiple ways, but two major ways. One is character, selfishness, character qualities, the kind of people that human beings are, self-destructive, all the negative qualities that have gotten worse. And mostly it's about selfishness and materialism, a lack of duty, a lack of connection to God, a lack of sort of responsibility to something bigger than yourself. That's just eroded over, so many years of this materialistic capitalist system. And the second part is that human beings suck at being human beings. Like, without this system that does so much for us, we're now like zoo animals. We couldn't live as natural human beings. If you dropped people, like that Naked and Afraid show, but those are, people that have trained in some way. But you look at what happens to those people on Naked and Afraid. These are people who want to be, if you've ever seen that show on the Discovery Channel or shows like it, these are people who want to be survivalists, who want to live off the land, off the grid, and pride themselves in having survival skills, and they leave them out in the woods somewhere and they're just miserable and they lose weight. They lose, 40 pounds in 30 days or something. And even though they have skills, they're certainly not thriving. And the normal person would just be lost, would be dead in days, right? Like, people can't survive as being human beings without the system. So you have character qualities and then functionality, the ability to function as a natural human being. And both of those things have been, obliterated. So you have a species that's not only weakened, completely dependent on a controlling system, but they're really selfish too, right? And people have difficulty changing. I guess that would be the third. Think about how many people in your life you've seen change. Think about people who are addicts who, I was talking about this yesterday. Everyone's a crackhead to some extent. You look at Hunter Biden, but most people will throw away their lives over attachments to something on the material plane. And so if you think about addictions, how many people are able to transcend their addiction? Very few people can transcend their addiction. You have people who, many people have their lives ended or ruined by their addiction, but very few people transcend their addiction. And even when they do, oftentimes they're still assholes, right? Even after they get rid of their addiction, sometimes they're even worse and they're more difficult to deal with. And so it's just one thing, right? Being able to sort of conquer or transcend one thing is, even that is, most people can't do it. And it's just a drop in the bucket. And so, this idea that it's the elites, and when you look around, you say, well, how many really great people are out there, right? How many people who are just wonderful people that are very selfless and they're giving love and giving, energy and, their resources to other people in one way or another, are connected to God and have higher developed character qualities and are patient and kind and all these other things in the face of miserable humanity, right? The miseries and the big suck, right? The overall suckiness of the human race and planet Earth right now. And so, yeah, there are positive things. There's, people show moments of empathy and, everybody has their moments of, being a good person and, transcending and rising above their ego. I mean, there's always hope. Human beings can do that. We've all experienced it. But right now, it is not the norm, right? And so when people look at the so-called elites and say, hey, it's just them, well, come on, right? It's everybody. There's very few people that are, above, who have risen to a higher level. Very few saints. I've talked about that before. I mean, saints, legitimate saints. Because faking to be nice, again, there's a lot of fakery, right? That's the other thing. Number 4 should be how fake everybody is, how deceptive, the masks that people wear, pretending to be nice, but on the inside being something else. Being somebody who, is hiding what they really feel and think behind a mask of, fake kindness, right? And people are just obsessed with the negative. That's the number 5. I could just keep on going, but people, instead of embracing something or watching something that would inspire them to be better, they want to see failure. They want to see people fall. They want to see people screw up. They want to see, anger and drama. Like if you took, all the violence and anger and, negativity out of a movie or TV show, nobody would watch it, right? People want all the lower level stuff. They want Jerry Springer. So this stupid meme that says if people got their shit together, they could crush the New World Order. The New World Order isn't the problem. The elites aren't the problem. In fact, they are being taken out of power. The intergenerational sort of secret society ruling wealthy people are being disempowered now. They're being, erased from the future, as is their system, right? It isn't the people, it's their system they've created. And the system is a beast that even if the people, the so-called elite, have a change of heart, the system won't allow them to do so, or they'll be punished by the system. And so it's like, the monster they've created. It's the beast. They've lost control over the beast. They've lost control over the AI. They've lost control over their debt-based currencies, right? They've lost control over their weapons, their militaries, right? They've lost control over their scientific experiments. In fact, all those things now, aren't in control of people. They control people, right? All those things I've just mentioned run humanity, right? They're like our overlords, these things that have been created by humans, this beastly system. It's multi-functioning parts made up of people and corporations and governments and cultures and all these things, science and, religion and all these other things are so desperate. The system itself is so desperate as a whole to keep on going. It's devouring people and resources and doing whatever it can to survive. And so it's always been about the system. It's never been about the people. Like people suck and that's, people have to change, but the system's become the problem. The system is dominating people and people have to change for that to be corrected, but people can't change that way because the system has weakened them to such a degree. So the only thing left is for the system to collapse, which is going to happen. I've said this over and over again. There's nothing really worth saving here, and it's better to, start from scratch and build something new, which leads us to the hyperinflation, because that's what happens in a debt-based system. And when your government, which is, just handing out these bailouts and all the stuff that happened with COVID, but I've said this over and over again, it's more than just that. It's a dysfunctional debt-based system. This is how a debt-based system ends, with hyperinflation, where they have to devalue the currency because the amount of debt that's been created outweighs. There's more debt than there is resources. There's not $2 quadrillion worth of resources that can be developed on Earth. So right now the debt is more than the Earth itself is worth, right? $2 quadrillion worth of debt, global debt, even more now and growing, is worth more, in terms of what the dollar's worth, in terms of earthly resources, than the Earth has resources. Our debt has grown past what our Earth could sustain as, possible economic resources. So now we're in the hyperinflation mode. And so there's a solution out there, which I talk about the heartfulness meditation all the time, which connects people to God internally. It's a system. The heartfulness meditation is a system, but the result of the system, what's important, and that is a deepened connection to God and developing one's heart as a central intelligence to a person's existence, where you center your intelligence in your heart. You have your mind, you have your gut, you have your ego, but your heart leads you down your spiritual path, and God guides you through your heart as a beacon for your existence. And so this is what the heartfulness system offers, which is something that human beings can do, but the system enhances with cleaning and transmission people's ability to do this. And you have to change, and you continuously have to change and grow as a person. And some of the changes are difficult. And so, as it stands now, very few people can embrace this. I mean, they can do the heartfulness system, but can they change, right? At what level can they change and rise above their personal prejudices and the limitations of their ego and their selfishness and the person the system has helped them to become, which is, far away from the best version of themselves. And so, there's so much change that can happen now, and then after the system collapses, we'll see. There's no way to predict people's ability to change or not. In fact, people don't usually change, but given the right circumstances, if it becomes a choice between survival and not, right, maybe people will be persuaded to take the higher road. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.